Hello, everybody. Welcome to January's live stream. Today, we're going to discuss the residency requirements going up for 2023. I'm going to give it a couple of more minutes for everybody to get in the room. If you guys want to give a shout out where you're from, and we'll get into discussing the residency requirements. And Rick D says, been watching your channel for about 4 weeks. I appreciate you showing me the right way to do things. Planning on visiting Hualtuco next week, December to get my planning started to move down. Thanks for all you do. Well, thank you, Rick, for dropping in. I really appreciate it. Let's see. Let's give it a little bit more time. If you guys want to shout out where you're coming from, I noticed Lisa's here, Cindy K's here, Lisa Arias Best is here. Here we go. Oh, Mark Adamson from Canada. How are you doing, Mark? How are you doing? All right, I guess we'll get started. And Michigan, Cindy, and Indiana, Lisa. Oh, Mark, you're going to get your card in February. All right, now let's go ahead and start with the 2023 residency requirements. After that, we'll discuss anything else. Melanie J, look at that. Hello from Ecuador. Thank you, Melanie. We're going to get started with the residency requirements today. We're going to talk about them and why they go up every year. It seems like they've been going up exponentially. I just did a video about how they went up 20% from last year. And I'm going to go into why, how it works, and hopefully there'll be some changes sometime soon. Marcus in Austin. All right. Marcus got his consulate appointment in McAllen. McAllen's one of the places I'm going to talk about in my live stream here. And let me see. Mazatlan, Miriam is coming from Mazatlan. Oh, and Katrina, the maker, Katrina saw me on Bill the Geek Show. I came out on Bill the Geek Show the other day. And actually, I've dropped in on his live streams. So, and Profe, yes, I've seen your comments. You're coming from Santo Domingo. You're going to be going to the consulate very soon in Santo Domingo. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drop a link, but I went ahead and put together a chart for y'all and the chart's kind of an overall immigration chart that I put together for everybody. And basically, this immigration chart is kind of a flow chart, and it says if you want to be a tourist, it goes to the top and how much it costs, or not how much it costs, but what the paths are. But you're going to notice I put some lines that go to permanent residency, temporary residency, and what the requirements are. Now, all the numbers on that chart are approximations. Now, there's a link in my previous video that I did about everything going up. But the reason why they're approximations is because every consulate is a little bit different. Usually, a lot of consulates will vary from one consulate to another. Usually, they vary within $100 or $200 difference. There are some consulates that vary greatly. Now, there's also some misconceptions. I just noticed one YouTuber came out with a video today trying to explain how the consulates work, and it's not completely correct. It is correct in a sense, but the formulas that they're using are totally different. So let me explain to everybody how this works before we go anywhere. Is that the residency requirements, first of all, when you want to get residency, there's basically two ways to get residency: within country and outside. You have to start outside the country. But the only way you can really start inside the country is if you're married to a Mexican citizen or a Mexican national. Otherwise, you have to do it outside the country. I'm also going to talk about another process inside the country, but that's going to come a little bit later on, because it's going to talk about what if you can't meet the financial solvency requirements. You can actually apply within country if you meet certain requirements. And also, if you are trying to petition for one of your dependents, which we're going to go into And Mark Adamson, you have a perfect point here, and we're going to go into that. The way things are heading, working people will be priced out of the residency requirement. What a shame. And it is a shame. And we're going to talk about what possible changes could happen. And I was expecting them to happen last year, but they didn't. So let's go into how it works when you just start outside of Mexico. That's how 90% of you would have to apply for residency. I've already seen a couple of you already talking about how you have a consulate appointment. Profe was talking, Marcus was talking, he's got one in McAllen. McAllen is one of the places that's a lower requirement. But basically, the way it works is that it's based on a formula, okay? And this formula is based on a minimum wage. And back many years ago, the minimum wage was used as an economic indicator for things that were, for example, fines, taxes, all sorts of things. So what they would do is different fines, different taxes, different revenue collection type things were based on the minimum wage many years ago. And that was kind of an economic indicator, because the minimum wage kind of goes up with the economy, or goes down, never really goes down, but it goes up with the economy. And so they kept using the minimum wage. Now, that's where the formula originated from. Now, the formula that the consulate use is 300 times the minimum wage for temporary residency, as far as basically a monthly income that you're required to have. You can also qualify on savings, okay? So that savings is going to be based on a different formula, and that savings it's basically, if I'm not mistaken, let me go into my thing here, because I don't want to get it incorrect here. I'm gonna go straight to my chart here, and I'm pulling it up for myself here. But basically, the requirements are going to be 40,000 days times the minimum for temporary residency. It's basically 40,000 days times the minimum wage. Okay, now here's the thing. The minimum wage went up this year 20%. Last year, it went up 22%. So basically, we're having these large increases in minimum wage, okay? And the problem is that these large increases, the Mexican government's trying to catch up for inflation. And what has happened in 2016, the Mexican government says, you know what, the minimum wage is increasing too quickly, too fast, so we need to find a different indicator. All right, so there's a kind of equivalent to the Bureau of the Census Bureau in Mexico. So they got together with their economists, and basically said, let's come up with a different formula that's a better indicator of the economic position that Mexico's in, and take into account all sorts of things like inflation, cost of living, and those types of things. That's where they came up with a number called the UMA number, which is different than the minimum wage. Okay, so basically the UMA in 2016, the federal government said all the government agencies need to quit using the minimum wage, and they need to go to this UMA number. All right. They need to start they can use the same formulas, but they need to start using the UMA instead of the minimum wage. Okay. So all the government agencies did that. Now, immigration and the consulates did not know, they did not follow suit, even though all the other government agencies went to this UMA formula. And so basically, the way it works here is that since they didn't go to the UMA formula, they stayed with the minimum wage, utilizing this formula that I'm giving you. I'll even give you the formula to the permanent residency too. But the reason why is because if you look at it from a diplomatic standpoint, when I was working with the U.S. State Department, I'm going to give you an example of when I was working through the U.S. State Department when I was a country attaché. The U.S. State Department, in the diplomatic community, the consulates and the embassies have total control over discretion of who gets a visa or who gets permission, any type of permission to come into the country. The consulate has total discretion. And it's the same with immigration. When you're coming into the United States, and you, let's say you're a foreigner coming into the United States, an immigration officer asks you, let me see your visa, and they actually have full discretion. And it's the same thing when you're going into Mexico on a tourist visa. They'll ask you, oh, how long are you going to stay here? And they determine how long you can stay. It's basically based on the idea that immigration is controlling the flow of people in and out of the country, so therefore they can set whatever requirements they want. If the immigration officer's in a bad mood, then guess what? He can tell you 2 days if he wants to, or he can tell you you're not coming into the country at all. And this discretion is also left up to the consulate in issuing the actual visa to come in. And when you actually apply for residency, that's what you're doing. You're asking for a visa, a special purpose visa that you're going to convert into residency. So I'll be honest with you. There's even people who have met the financial requirements, and for whatever reason, even though they met the financial requirements, the consulate officer says, you know what? I'm not going to issue a visa at all. There have been cases of that. But that's because the consulate officer can use their discretion. Now, in this popular video that came out, I think today or yesterday, the YouTuber was talking about how you may go down to the immigration office. The immigration office is going to tell you need $1,500 a month, and then you go to the consulate and they're going to tell you need $3,000. But I'm going to explain to you why that is. Last year, President AMLO finally told immigration that, you know what, you're the last agency that's not utilizing the UMA formula. See, because what happens is when you apply, you get that visa from the consulate, right? Then after you get the visa from the consulate, you come into you get 180 days to actually enter the country. Then when you enter the country and get your visa stamped, you come in on a canje, what they call a canje permission, and you have 30 days to report to an immigration office to apply for your immigration status. So you come in and apply for the status. Now, immigration has their requirements. They still have financial solvency requirements, just like the consulate. So they're going to say, show me all your documentation. Well, AMLO told immigration, you need to go to the UMA formula. And last year that caused a lot of confusion. Actually, a lot of Mexican blogs said residency requirements have gone down. It was when AMLO did that with immigration, it was, I tell you, everybody and their dog, it hit the news, blogs, everything, that the requirements, financial requirements have gone down. But there's one problem. The consulate didn't adopt the UMA, only immigration. Immigration is under, of course, a department within the government. But the consulate said, guess what? We still have full discretion, and AMLO can't tell us what to do. That's basically what the Department of Exterior Relations decided. They decided that we're still going to figure out what we want to use as a formula. And actually, if you look at the consulates, they don't have to use any kind of formula. They can even set a number. They can say $4,000. And this is not unusual. Financial solvency requirements are not unusual. As a matter of fact, in the United States, if you apply for residency, if you're a foreigner and you apply for residency in the United States, and I'm coming from my immigration background, is that you have to show financial solvency, or you have to show someone supporting you And what they use for financial solvency is that you somehow are supported with an income above the poverty line. And the poverty line is determined in the United States every year by economists and that type of thing. And it's the same thing with Mexico, but they're using this minimum wage. And for some reason, for some odd reason, the U.S., not the U.S., the Mexican consulates have decided that they are going to stick to this minimum wage. Now, Exterior Relations basically said, this is a template to all the consulates in the United States, in Canada, in Europe. And when I did my chart, if you download my chart, you're going to see it's in U.S. dollars because I'm from the United States. Actually, I'm coming to you from Santa Fe, New Mexico right now. I'm heading back to Mexico on Saturday, as a matter of fact. But I came to visit family here in Santa Fe, and you can actually take that formula, take the minimum wage, find the amount of pesos, and convert it, and then you can get an approximate. Now, there's two catches to this amounts of pesos. The consulates were told, okay, go ahead and use what formula? Almost all the consulates still use the formula of 300 times the minimum wage. There are two consulates that I know of that are using, we don't even know, I know that it's been mentioned that they use the UMA formula, but they don't use the UMA formula because McAllen, for example, is at 2,500 and the UMA formula is more like 1,600. So now I do know Albuquerque, New Mexico. Someone just brought to my attention that Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is right down the road from where I'm at right now, about an hour from where I'm at right now in Santa Fe, their consulates requiring around 1,600 or 1,700, which makes sense that they're using the UMA formula. So these consulates are picking, what we used to say in the diplomatic community is every consulate's its own little kingdom. Every consulate has a consular general, and even though they answer to the ambassador, they make the decisions that go on locally at that consulate. So a consular general could even say, I don't care what the formula is, I want $4,000 a month. Now, fortunately, that hasn't happened. Fortunately, SRE, which is Exterior Relations, has tried to stay consistent. The only problem is this consistency that we're seeing is based on the minimum wage. So it's not based on this UMA formula. Now, it doesn't make sense because if immigration requires $1,600 a month or around that with the peso, actually, someone just mentioned right now that the peso is doing really good, and so with the peso, it may be $1,600 a month at immigration in Mexico, but the consulate's still asking you for $3,000 a month because they're using different formulas, and so that's the reason why there's a disparity in all the consulates. Now, the other disparity that happens is if you look at a couple of consulates, and I looked at a couple of consulates, and one's at 3,200, one's at 34, one's at 31, those types of things, is if you look at that, what is going on is that basically they're using a different exchange rate. And for the sake, the peso goes up and down. So usually the consulate will say, we're just going to determine it at 18 and we're going to keep it at 18 the whole year, even if the peso goes up to 20. The exchange rate goes up to 20, and I'm talking in dollars here. And so basically that's the way it works. Now, how do you prove this financial solvency? What they want to see is they want to see your pay stub. Basically 6 months of you can show your pay stubs that you make this much, but really what they want to see is your bank statement with 6 months for temporary, with 6 months of basically showing your deposits into your bank statement, showing your income. Now, this is net income that they require, not gross. Not like when you apply for credit and you can say, I make $150,000. No, this is after all your deductions. So, and then you have to show those deposits into the bank. Now, some consulates do require certified bank statements, and I do know the question has come up, how do I get certified bank statements? Because I went to my bank and my bank won't certify them. There's just a lot of people, what they do is they go to a notary public and they swear. They do a little affidavit that says, I swear that these are accurate copies of my bank statements, and they have them, they initial all of them and do it in front of a notary, and usually the consulate will accept something like that. So or some people will go to their bank, get their bank representative to sign something or notarize it there at the bank. So that's how you get the statements. Now, for permanent residency, the formula is totally different. For permanent residency, it's actually 500 for monthly income. It's 500 days times the Mexican minimum wage, or for savings, it's actually approximately it's 500 days, and then for savings, it's 20,000 days times the minimum wage. So basically, you're looking at a different number there. You're looking at approximately $5,400 US a month for permanent residency, or a savings of approximately $217,000. Now, you can use your 401k, but you're going to need 12 months of statements instead of 6 months of statements. So, Mark Adamson actually said, and this is perfect for the 401k, says, I went to my I went with the certified letter from my investment advisor, and it was easy peasy. Usually they'll accept that as long as you get a letter from your investment advisor saying this this 401k balance is along with your statements is valid here. So, oh, Michael, I haven't seen you in a while. How are you doing? How are you doing? And so basically, you do have to show your bank statements or your investment statement. Now, as far as permanent residency, you may say, I make $5,000 or $6,000 a month, or I have a retirement of $6,000 a month. Now, here's the catch with that. The consulates basically say, all right, it has to come, the income has to come from a pension source. Basically, you have to be retired. What I did, which I didn't qualify for permanent right away, it's a long story. I qualified for permanent in two ways. I qualified in the income, and I also in pension income, and I also qualified because I was married to a Mexican national. But I actually requested temporary because I wanted to bring a car, and that never worked out. But I eventually converted over to permanent. And so basically, what you have to do is you have to show you're retired. What I did was I took all my paperwork. I didn't care whether I was going to how I was going to qualify, and what I did was I said, "Here's my pension letter. I have a letter saying that I'm pensioned. Usually they'll accept that as proof of retirement because I retired at 52, or you have to be of a certain age." And the consulate will say, if you're not 62 or 65, you're not retired. I don't care if you retired at 50, 40, you're getting out of your 401k. You're not retired because you don't meet the age requirements for being retired in Mexico. So now other consulates, people have just taken their 401k or their investments and shown that they, I have $2 million in my bank account, or whatever it makes, $250,000 in my bank account for the last 12 months, and I want permanent residency, and they haven't had a problem, and they don't meet the retirement age. But just take that into consideration. Now, here's the thing that I tell everybody is if you aren't of retirement age, you can always try to get your permanent residency right away. But if you don't, all you have to do is you say, okay, I'll apply for temporary residency, and they'll approve you for temporary residency, and then you get your temporary residency. When you come to immigration, you get it for a year, then you have to renew it, and then you renew it for up to 3 years, and then after 4 years, you renew it. You can't go more than 4 years in temporary, and then you just basically request permanent residency, and there's no real financial solvency requirements after that. So Marcus was saying, have you heard McAllen having an age limit for permanent? I retired young and I'm 46. I did my process through McAllen. I can't tell you if they do or not. At the time that I did it, like I said, it was kind of one of those things of which way do you want to apply. One thing you might want to do, Marcus, is ask them and tell them very nicely that I want to go ahead and apply for permanent residency. I'm retired. And if they do give you a hard time with the not financial, but the age, just basically go for temporary. But there's nothing wrong with asking for permanent. And just saying, you know what, okay, if I don't qualify, I have enough here for my, and also Marcus, that one question that I do have for you is, one question that I do have, if you are pensioned from like the government or the state, if you have some type of proof that you are pensioned, or you can show your pension statements, because I, like, for example, with the federal government, I have earning, like, sort of like your earning or your pay stubs that I can print out that shows that it comes from a pension. So that can also help you out there. But I do know some consulates are very, very strict about that age thing, even if it comes from a pension. But normally it doesn't. And actually, Marcus said I just answered the question, and I guess maybe I did before, but that's the big key to it. And here's the thing. And then here's the thing. Now, after that, what if I want to bring in, and actually, Lisa asked the question, perfect. And actually, Marcus said he was retired police. Perfect, Marcus. You, as long as you have that pension showing that it's coming from a pension and showing that that pension is going into the bank, you should have no problem whatsoever. And now Lisa brings up this. Yes, it's 65. Well, let me get with Lisa's first. And actually, Mark made a good comment here. But the reason why I'm going to touch on Lisa's question is because not only do you have to make that $3,000 a month, what if I want to bring my spouse? What if I want to bring my kids? Okay. Because there's people that want to move with their whole family. Okay. Well, if you want to bring your kid and you want to bring your spouse, they're going to require an additional amount per dependent. Last year was $800, and it looks like this year it went up to $1,000 per dependent. So for example, if you're applying and you want your spouse to come along with you, and they say, let's say you're in McAllen, Texas. I'm going to take McAllen, Texas, because we were talking about it with Marcus. And Marcus says, okay, I want to bring my wife. And how much do I have to? Well, you have to show your 5,400, because Marcos is going to, not 5,400. I don't know what it is for permanent in McAllen, but you're going to have to show your 3,000 plus an extra 1,000 for your wife. And I think McAllen's a little bit less because they were last year than the normal $800. I think it was 600 or a little less. So they're going to say, okay, so not only do you have to make that 3,000 and something, you're going to have to make the extra $1,000 per dependent. Now, you're going to probably say, well, shoot, I can barely meet the $3,000 a month. How am I going to meet $4,000 a month? And Lisa brought up something that I'm going to bring up. That's not a problem. Don't worry. And what I do advise a lot of people to do is just one of you in the family apply for residency. If you have enough to financially show solvency for everybody, then go for it. But if you don't, that's not a problem, because what you do is you apply for residency, you go down to Mexico, and then you actually, what some people do is they go ahead of their family members and get their residency, or other people, what they do is they go, the only problem is you do risk, if you don't get the 180 days, their whole family goes, you come in on your conhe, the other family members come in on a tourist visa, and then you do your 30 days. Within 30 days, you get your residency, which is also a little bit of an issue right now of getting it within the 30 days, but you get your residency. Then what you can do is, now that you're a resident, you can actually apply for your family members within Mexico. That's one of the ways of applying within Mexico, because I said there was going to be a couple of ways. And you say, I want to bring in my wife, I want to bring in my kid under family unification, and then you petition for them. and you don't have to meet financial solvency requirements. So that's a way of getting your whole family in if only one of you meets the requirements. So basically, that's the way it works with the family reunification. You don't have to show income. Now, the last way of actually getting residency or applying within country, or the two other ways, is if you're married to a Mexican national or to the regularization program, which has been extended. The regularization program is if you entered before a certain year, you have some entries and you stay. Some immigration officers require that you had a 180-day visa previous. Some will say, hey, not a problem. You can have a 7-day expired, but you have an expired visa. Basically, you go in and say, I want to apply, and you meet certain requirements, and you can actually apply within country. But you have to check, and I would check with the facilitator in the area that you plan to go if you plan to go that route. Most of the people that go that route were people that were living here. We used to call them perpetual tourists that were coming in every 180 days and getting a visa. Those people were the ones that they created this program for, or other individuals who would just come in because they didn't meet the financial requirements and then they just never left and were living here, or living not here in Mexico illegally. So that was a chance for the Mexican government to say, you know what, we're gonna get a little bit stricter on border controls, but at the same time, we know you've been living here for a while, and we're going to give you a chance to apply. And a lot of people have been successful in gaining their residency. Let me see, Michael. I'm planning renewing my Mexican passport. I'm happy about the new biometric chip being added into the passport book. Yeah, you know what, Michael? You make a good point, because Mexico, their immigration, everything, immigration, they're modernizing a lot of their systems, and so basically, that's one of the chip that's going inside of the passport is one of the new modernizations. Actually, they even changed my permanent residency card. The new permanent residency card is different with new security features, RFID stuff, all sorts of stuff on it, and that they've come up on. Now let's see here, and then let me see. A was saying, I obtained my temporary residency visa, but my work rejected my request to work in Mexico, even though their written policy says we can if we handle all immigration costs, which I have done. Actually, you bring up a good point, A. We have a lot of digital nomads that are coming into Mexico. And one of the things that one with these digital nomads is that a lot of them, one of the things that they don't realize is when you come into, well, actually the United States, I don't know which country you're coming from, but usually in the United States, and I can speak for the United States, there's certain corporate laws, and a lot of it has to do with tax reasons, okay? And it's not tax reasons for you. You still have to pay taxes if you work for a U.S. company and you're a U.S. citizen. United States is a citizen-based tax system. So if you're a U.S. citizen, you have to pay taxes on your income. So that's not the problem. But see, corporations actually have to pay certain types of taxes on, depending on where they're at, they have to pay certain types of taxes on their employees. So technically, even though you're remote working, there's an assumption that you're working within the boundaries of the United States, okay? And certain corporations, if you're working outside of the United States, corporate law says, or certain policies say, I have to report to the U.S. government how many of my workers are working out of the country. For example, a lot of countries worldwide, Facebook, they have people in Latin America. So those people that are working in Latin America, they actually report to the United States government, because they're a company or corporation in the United States. They say, 500 of my employees are in Mexico, 300 of my employees are in Brazil. And what you'll find a lot in the expat groups is they'll even tell you, use a VPN, don't let them know you're in Mexico when you're working. And that's one of the reasons, because a lot of corporations will require that. Now, your corporation might have some kind of deal that says that you handle all immigration costs, and you tell them that you're going to be in Mexico, and then they can report to the U.S. government that you're working in Mexico. Technically, I'm not going to really go there, but a lot of digital nomads, you're actually illegally working in Mexico. If you are a digital nomad and you are not listed in your company as being overseas, if you're listed in your company as being in the United States. So that's kind of a very sensitive topic, and I don't know if that's what happened. That they didn't want human resources, knew you were going to Mexico, and they just couldn't deal with having to report you overseas. But I have heard a lot of. I do have a lot of people that make those comments. And Jojo, that route is why I needed a PV facilitator. Jojo Q, it says here, since no one seems to know or can confirm the relative value of my house. Yeah, Jojo, you're talking about actually requiring, I mean, not requiring, actually qualifying, and I have it on my chart on a residence, like basically saying I own property in Mexico. Technically, the property has to be worth, let me see, I think I have it on my chart here. It has to be worth around 434, 40, it's 40,000 days times the minimum wage, which is 8 million pesos. And that's about $434,000. And that's probably why they can't. Now, Jojo, if you're in Puerto Vallarta, PV, I'm thinking Puerto Vallarta. One of the facilitators, actually, it's Sonia Diaz. If you go to soniadiaz.mx or .com, I'm not sure if, or Sonia Diaz, just look up Sonia Diaz out of San Miguel de Allende. She actually has an office in Puerto Vallarta. And she's pretty well up. All of the people that she has working for her are pretty well versed in, they're very good facilitators, and you might want to reach out to them through the website. And Lisa Arias Best, can I apply for permanent residency without meeting the income if my father was born in Mexico and now lives in the U.S.? Actually, Lisa, you would qualify under your family member, immediate family member, just like being married or spouse. You're the daughter. Actually, Lisa, you are allowed, let me bring this up again. You can actually get citizenship. Now, if what you would have to do is go to the Mexican consulate, you can actually apply for your dual citizenship. If your father was born in Mexico, all you have to do is get a hold of your father's birth certificate. You go to a Mexican consulate. Now, instead of applying for an appointment for a visa or for a permanent residency, you can actually ask for Mexican citizen services through the consulate. And if they verify your father's birth, you basically have inherited Mexican citizenship. And then they will actually give you a Mexican passport and everything else. So technically, Lisa, you don't even need permanent residency. And if you want to apply for permanent residency and don't want the citizenship, what you can do is you can actually get a copy of your, and actually, I don't even think you need to go to the consulate. When I went to the consulate, I qualified because I was married to a Mexican citizen, but you don't have to go to the consulate. I think, like I said, you can actually go and apply directly. But what you will need is a copy of your dad's birth certificate, a certified copy of your dad. You'll need to have a notario certify go to the notario and have it certified before you can apply. But you can apply for permanent residency, or you can go straight for and become a dual citizen. And let me see here. And then here, A said, shouldn't the temporary resident visa help corporations with employees working abroad? It requires non-Mexican income, which is preferable for remote work. I have permanent U.S. address too. The thing, that with all of this stuff that I was talking about corporations, is that they do, your human resources, whichever company you work for, does handle all of that stuff for working abroad. I'm not saying that you can't work abroad because you work for a U.S. corporation. What I'm saying is that the human resources, depending on the company that you work for, I just explained the laws that the corporations have to abide by. Now, some corporations say not a problem. You can work overseas, and we don't have a problem with you working, and we'll pay you in the U.S. currency. They have a lot of Mexicans that work for the companies, and they pay them through U.S. currency, through U.S. bank accounts. But the thing is that they have to report. So they have policies. So if they're going to let people work overseas, they have certain policies that they have to meet, that you have to meet. And I couldn't tell you because like I said, I don't know your personal situation or what corporation you work for. And actually, I don't know different corporations, or like you said, your corporation had a policy saying that you could work as long as you handled the immigration costs. So it all depends. That's something you'll have to take up with your company. And let me see here. Jay Gomez. I want to retire in Mexico, but I can't until I'm eligible to retire. That will be in a few years. What's the best route? Temporary or permanent? I will meet all financial requirements. Jay, here's the thing, and I'm going to say this because I said this in my video. You might qualify right now. If this trend keeps going up, which I keep on predicting that it's not going to go up, but I've been proven wrong 2 years in a row because I keep saying they're going to go to the UMA formula. But if this keeps going up 20% and here's another thing too, the current Mexican president only has a year and a half, I think, to go for his presidential term. So we're going to have a new president in a year and a half. So you don't know how the new president is going to handle this. The new president is going to appoint new leaders in the exterior relations and new ambassadors, new consulate general. Every time there's a change in administration, there's going to be a whole new change. So you might see the consulates change 180 degrees. They might even come up with a number themselves or quit using a formula. We don't know. But I'll tell you what, Jay, and I'm going to bring your comment up again. If you qualify now, your best route, well, if you qualify and you can go to a consulate and they'll give you permanent residency. The best thing is permanent residency. Permanent residency lasts for, I have permanent residency and it lasts the rest of my life. And I never have to renew it, anything else. So that's your best route. But since you're not retired yet and you're not showing a pension source, unless they give you an exception, like I said, there are some people that have gone into some consulates and they've shown financial solvency for permanent residency, which is very rare. Usually they ask for an age requirement. If you are already 65, then you already meet the age requirement. So you just say, I want to go for permanent residency. Well, I would apply now, whether it be I would apply now for whatever residency you're going to apply for, because you don't know what the financial solvency requirement is going to be in a few years. And you don't know what the financial solvency, I'm reading your next comment here. You don't know what the financial solvency requirements are going to be in the next 5 years or 2 years or 3 years. So what I'm saying is if for some reason, your pension is going to be $4,000, but in 2 years, it goes up 20% every year. In the next 2 years, it's going to be at $5,000. And then you're going to find yourself, I don't qualify. So what I would do is look at your best option as far as if you can qualify for permanent, go permanent. If you can qualify for temporary, get it now. Because here's the great thing about residency in Mexico. There's no in-country residency requirement. Like, for example, in the United States, if you spend more than 180 days outside of the United States and you're a permanent resident, you technically are supposed to lose your permanent residency. In Mexico, there is no requirement. So all you would have to do, now you would have to take the time off of work and everything else to get your residency fixed up, fix up your residency, and if you can get permanent, not have to worry about it. When you retire, you already got residency. If you need to do temporary, the only catch with doing temporary now is that you have to do temporary now, and then they usually only issue it for a year. Then you have to go back in a year, and then you can do it for up to 3, and then not worry about it. And then if you want to later on renew it for permanent, even if you're still working and you haven't moved to Mexico, you can go back. The only thing, like I said, it's just a little bit more time consuming to do that. But you can get your permanent residency or get your residency now, or start the process now, and you're better off getting it now. Just like you said, I do qualify right now, but I can't collect my retirement until 25 years or 58. I'm 50 and have 3 years to get my 25. So basically, you're a good candidate for temporary. And like I said, go get your temporary residency and do it now, because you don't know what the requirements are going to be in. You said how many years you have? 3 years. You don't know what the requirements are going to be. They might even be lower. And that's the thing. And some people, I keep telling them, keep the faith, keep the faith, keep the faith. I have the faith. I'm keeping the faith that it's going to be lower. So, let's just hope it is lower, but in case it keeps going up these 20%, you want to make sure that you get it now while you qualify. And Jay, the only thing that I have to say is you just need to figure out whether you can get, and actually Jay Gomez, where you actually located? Because maybe I might know which consulates, because there are some consulates that are a little bit more liberal on, hey, you meet the permanent residency requirements. Go ahead and you can get those. And then Lisa has one more question, and we're going up almost on an hour here, and I like to keep it down to an hour. And thanks, Ernie. One more question if I get my dual citizenship or permanent residency, what do I need to do for my husband to come up? That's not a problem. Once you get your permanent residency or your dual citizenship, you can actually go to INM, straight to INM within country, and you can petition for him under family unification. If you do get your dual citizenship, you do it as a Mexican citizen, and if you get your permanent residency, you do the same thing. It's basically the same process. I would suggest a facilitator for all these processes. It makes it easier. And Michael Guerito, I want to bring this up. This is for Lisa. I went with both my parents to the consulate in Mexico in San Diego. It took them a couple of months to Oh, and that's the other thing, Lisa, unless your father's deceased, they may require his presence. If your father's still alive, they may require his presence with the proof that he's a Mexican citizen. And the other thing too, if his it just all depends. What I would do is just get a hold of the consulate and talk to Mexican Citizen Services about your father. Now, if you're going to apply for permanent residency, you'll have to do it through U.S. Citizen Services, but you're using the proof that you were born to a Mexican father. Jay Gomez, you're in Michigan. Okay, Michigan. They have gone back and forth on that. I have heard of people. Oh, but you want to go to McAllen. That's right. Okay. McAllen, I have no idea how strict they are. Like I said, they're less strict on the financial requirements, so you may get lucky. What I would do, Jay, if I were you, is ask for permanent and just tell them what your situation is, and that you want to move to Mexico, and see if they do. If not, say, you know what, I'll just apply for temporary residency. But one thing I would stay away from is just saying that you're not going to move to Mexico for another 3 years, because they may just say, oh, then come back in 3 years. I'm just saying that's a possibility. But just go through the process and ask for permanent, and here's my pay stubs, and keep it very brief. And Okay. Cindy K was saying Michigan. And actually, Michigan, last year or the year before last, they were one of, last year, what I did see was a trend, and actually they went back up. But what happened was that a lot of consulates departed, just like McAllen. McAllen was at 1,600 or 1,700 last year. A lot of the consulates started departing from this formula and started requiring less money. And Michigan was actually one of the consulates that was a little bit more less restrictive. So you are right, Sydney K. She just says Michigan isn't bad with the monetary amounts. Okay, and A, real quick, we're gonna wrap this up real soon here. Any recommendations on where to read more about these agreements, corporations having regarding employees working abroad? I want to leave my U.S. only remote job, but have no other options, feeling trapped. What I would do is, like I said, each corporation has a different policy. Some corporations don't mind. Your best bet is human resources. The only thing is that you have to be careful because I don't know what corporation you work for, and sometimes if they think that you're going to want to leave to go to Mexico, and they're experiencing layoffs or whatever, you don't want to put yourself in the position. So, you may want to ask your human resources, hey, what's your policy on going to Mexico? Or what's your policy of working remotely in Mexico? And then you go from there. I know a lot of people, and I'm not saying to do this, this is not my advice, but I know a lot of people just don't tell their employers. They just go and they just work. And they work, most of them, a lot of them work through VPNs, so they can't tell where you're coming from. And that's the way they work it. And Mark Adamson said it perfectly. Said it perfectly. Get it while you can, folks. Get it while you can. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this discussion. I usually take about 30 minutes to explain the topic I'm going to do, and then I take another 30 minutes to answer questions. But we've had a really great session here, and I usually have a lot of good people. And I actually, Bill the Geek, I want to do a shout out. I don't know if you're still there, but he says, great information, Ernie, as always. And I want to thank you, Bill, for coming and showing up. And we're going to be actually interviewing Bill the Geek real soon. And so, okay. Thanks very much, Ron. Age said that they already rejected you. So that, like I said, that's one of those things you have to look out for. And Bill, another shout out. He says, hola, Ernie. And I'm going to be interviewing you soon. And actually, Bill and I might be getting together. We discussed this in my last interview with him and on his channel. If you want to go visit his channel, I really suggest you go visit his channel. I'll put the link to his channel in my description. But we might start getting together every month and touch on different topics. And so look for me on Bill Dallas Lewis, Bill the Geek, or Bill Dallas Lewis Show on YouTube. And you'll probably see more appearances of me on there. And you'll probably see more appearances of him on here. So thanks a lot for visiting, Bill. And thanks, everybody. I'm going to call it a wrap. And like I always say in my videos, don't forget to subscribe. And see you soon.